Okay, good morning, everyone, once again. And as we start in earnest, I want to welcome you all to a new week. Yes, I am optimistic that working with you, we would achieve some really um, interesting things this week. So, today, this class is kind of a repeat of our previous class, which we went to some technical issues we could not really do justice to. And it's important that we follow through in this class. That was why I had to reschedule, because what we learn from this class would help us in subsequent classes as well. So we shall be looking at one of the key features of Excel that you may likely not be able to do without, as long as you want to analyze data with Excel. And what we will learn here will also help us when we start working with Power BI. Sorry. So today is session 4 of our bootcamp series, and today we shall be looking at how to set up an automatic um, report and data refresh, and how to use pivot tables for dynamic reports, and scheduling automatic data refresh and report generation. And the project we shall be working on is on building an automatic reporting system. So the bulk of the work shall be on using pivot tables. So I'll take my time to take us through that. And once you build your pivot table, then the rest will not really be much of an issue, right? So we are using the Superstore, the sample Superstore data set for our analysis, and I expect that we already have this data set since it was shared in the on our bootcamp resources page. But if you don't have it, kindly let me know and I will quickly share it to you. So if you have it, you can quickly open up the data set. You could quickly open up the data set, and then we can now start in earnest. So let me quickly launch that. Okay, so this is our sample superstore data set. And as you all know, okay, we'll just quickly go through it. It's a data set we are already familiar with since we've been working, we've done some projects with it in the previous sessions, right? But today we would look at another angle beyond what we did in our previous class, and we shall interact with this using the pivot table. I don't want to mess up with this one which I already have, so let me just copy it, and you know I believe you all are aware of the another smarter way to do this, which is connecting to this data set using pivots. Using Power Query, but I will just simply copy it for now and then paste in the folder for this session. So this is session 4. I will paste it here so that I can always have the master copy. Alright, we have it now. So I would launch it. Okay, so let me just clear out those initial formats we applied to it, since that's not the focus for the day. So let me clear them out, right? Okay, so you already know that what this data set is all about, right? We have the orders, we have the returns, and then the people, and we successfully merged these tables in the previous class, right? So I think it's smarter to work with that one we merged, so that we don't have to repeat the process of merging it again. So where was that? That was um, session 3, I guess. Transformed with Power Query. Alright, not it. Let me go back. Was that session 2? Okay, yeah. Transformed with Power Query. So I think I I might have to work with this, or Should we just quickly merge it again so that you see the process? Then we'll now continue. What do you think? I'm looking for your, because I'm not sure people have this one already. So let me just get your opinion. Should we quickly transform this one we already have and then perform the merge just like we did the other time? Maybe it could be like a refresher, or we should just go on with this one that has already been prepared. So let me just get one or two persons opinion, then we proceed. So you can unmute yourself and just say your, share your thoughts on that.
You can quickly merge it. Merge it to refresh your memories.
Okay.
That's for me.
All right. So Noma, can I get your own?
I don't know if you can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I would say we can do a refresher.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just do that. So I'll close this out. Or let me just quickly launch. I'm sorry. Let me just quickly launch Power Query from here. Where was that again? Go to Data tab and then get data. Power Query. Launch Power Query. But this can vary depending on the version of Excel you have installed on your device. So let's wait for that to launch. And I am not going to waste much time because that's not the focus of today. So let's give it some time to load. Okay, so we are there. So the first thing, connect to a new source. So I'll click on that. Click on connect to new source, then file, Excel workbook, right? So I would now navigate to session 4 and then connect to the one I copied, like the one I just copied and pasted to the folder I created for this session. So where is that again? Let me just go to the folder. Week 1, then session 4. So this is a data set, right? Sample superstore data set. So I click on import and then click on import, then I'll wait for a while. Okay, so the three tables are here, right? As you can see, I always forget to turn on my highlighter. I will do that quickly. Apologies for that. Just quickly turn that on. Oh, it's not here. That will help us to follow along. All right, so I believe you can. This makes it easier. So the three tables we have: the orders table, the people, and then the return. So we would select them all. So I'll check here, select multiple items. So I'll check that, select multiple items. So I check this, and finally this, and bring them to Power Query. We'll give you some time to load. So we have the three tables here. So before I merge them, I would need to convert, do a quick brush up on this one and then this one. For instance, I will rename the columns. Instead, I will push the first rows. The first row represents the column names, person and region. So I'll push it to the top. Then use first row as header. Then I will rename this, instead of person, I will just call it manager, as that contains the names of the people in charge of different regions, right? And that's it about that. Then go back to returns and then do the same thing, push the first row to become the header. Then yes, okay, so I could quickly replace data here, right? So to save time, let me just quickly replace data on this column. So instead of yes, I can put true to make it true or false, right? So that when I merge with the other one, and then it should. So let me replace that. Yes, then replace with true. So remember the true here is in all caps, and that would Excel will quickly recognize that. So okay, so I think this one too is ready. Let me go back to the original table and drop the columns that we would not need, especially for instance the country column that just contains one country, which is the USA. We don't need that because it doesn't hold any important information for us. The country, what else? Do I need postal code? I don't think I would need it for this analysis. Alright, I selected multiple. Let's go back. So I'll just select this one, hold down my control key. If you hold down your shift key, you would select everything from the first to the last. But if you hold down the control key, you can now select individual, group of tables, columns you need. So which other one? Product ID, subcategory, product name. I don't need the product name. Okay, so I'll select that too. And then which other one? Sales, quantity, discounts, profit, and the rest. I think we'll need those ones. Then, so the ones we do not need is postal code. Yeah, the ones we do not need, we've selected. We just right click, then remove columns. So that's it about that. Then you you may want to draw columns because carrying all the irrelevant columns along with you would make your data, your model slow, and especially if you have a large data set. So I think we can go proceed with merging the table, the queries. The first one is already selected, so I click on here under combine, then merge queries, and wait for that to open. Alright, so we have the first table selected already, and then to select the second table I would want to merge returns, this first and the second, this first and the third, before any other thing. So I'll select the table to select the second table, which is our returns. So the common column between them is order ID, right? So I will click order ID in the first table, click order ID in the second table. That's the common column. Then how do I want to merge? Remember, this is the left, this is the right. So I want everything in the left to be retained, while only matching rows in the right be brought over to the left. Right, so it's already selected by default. Then I click on OK to perform the merge. So I've brought in that table here, right? But I've not selected the columns I'm interested in. So I'll click on this to expand it, right? Then I now uncheck the columns I do not need. For instance, order ID, I do not need it. I only need returned, right? Use original column as name prefix, no. So I now have this containing true or false. True for when the order was returned, and then null for the rest. So I would quickly replace data here. Let me quickly replace now the null. If this one is true and then this one is null, it means the ones that are null were not returned. So I will replace that as false. So I'll go to select the column, then go to replace value once again. Replace values, then I will enter NULL, which is the data I want to replace. Then I will replace it with false, FALSE, which is all in caps. Take note. So by this, I will be able to convert this column to the right data type, which is binary. True or false. So you could see that has affected. Now let me merge with the last table. This one, orders and returns are already merged. So I will now want to merge orders and people to have all the three tables merged. So I'll once again go back to merge queries, then merge queries, then this one is already selected. Then select, this time around I'll select people. Then the common column there is region. So I would go here to select region. This is the region for the first table. This is the region for the second table. Then this option still holds. Click OK. and then we have the same thing we saw initially. I would click here, expand it, uncheck the column that I do not need, which is the common column. I only needed it to join, but I don't need it to come to the main table since I already have it here in that main table. So I will uncheck that, and then I'll leave manager, click OK. So I now have the names of the managers and the orders that were returned, right? Okay, so our tables have been joined, and it's safe to close and load. Or let me ensure that everything is in order. Yeah, the data type, the date time, yes, order ID, customer name, segment, city, yes, states, region, product ID, category, yes. I think everything is in order. So okay, everything is in order. So I would then proceed to load and close and load. And then we give it time to there could be a mix up here. Please note that we had some tables opened initially, and that might lead to some conflicts here. So let me just quickly remove these former tables. Okay, you can see what I was referring to. We had the same data set opened before, which is orders, returns, and the rest. Before I now launched Power Query, so it's loading everything to this one as well, mixing it up, and that would cause some confusion. So let me quickly remove those old or let me just hide them since we don't need them. Let me just hide this, then hide this. And as a matter of fact, I only needed this orders table because that's what contains everything. So even this one that is returns too, I need to hide that as well. And then people, I need to hide that as well, right? So let me call this data source. Data source. I've renamed it to data source. So and then okay, so let me close this out, and then at this point we can now use as move on to power pivots. Pivot tables. Use pivot tables to operate on this. So the first thing I would want to do is I want to calculate certain matrix, right? And I really need to perform certain deductions. So the first thing I would want to do here is I want to filter for only orders that were not returned. I want to filter for only orders that were not returned, and then because instead of me to be doing subtraction in every other when we start applying the pivot table, I want to focus on only orders that were not returned in this entire data set. So how do I achieve that? I can just quickly come here and filter. So instead of I would have to filter for false. That means retain orders that were not returned, right? So yeah, now let's see how we can create pivot tables. First of all, what is a pivot table? Just like we learned about Power Query the other day, which is another very handy feature of Excel. Pivot Power Query allowed us to perform transformations on the data in terms of reshaping our data to bring them into the format or to the form that they should be in before we start our analysis, right? So pivot table take up from or pick up from where pivot Power Query stopped, in the sense that while Power Query is for data transformation and cleaning, and the pivot table is for analysis. It enables us to dissect our data in different ways, right? It enables us to dissect our data to perform certain calculations and then a lot of other things we want to do. So to create a pivot table, let me just create an empty worksheet here so that you can see it. It's easy. Just come to insert, then pivot table, right? By the time I click on this, it would prompt me to choose the data I want. So here you could see that the data range is not yet is empty because I have not it's yet to know which table to connect, to put the data from. But another shorter way to do it is just go there to the table that contains your data. The table that contains your data, and then so let me just delete this quickly. Go back to this table that contains your data, select all, right? Then go back to insert. You will still see the option pivot table. Click on pivot table. Now you could see now that this time around the table range is selected, right? The table, the data range is selected here, and then I don't need to go and then do that manually. So the option to create a new worksheet or to work in existing worksheet depends on, like in the first instance whereby I created an empty worksheet first, you could see that this option was checked, which is an existing worksheet. But I have not created an empty worksheet where I can populate this. So this option was now checked instead automatically. So I would just click on OK. And then it brings me to this view, which is what you see here is Power Pivots, right? And then if you look closely, you would see that to the right of my screen, I have the pivot table fields. Now it's divided into two main sections. Here is the data field. Here is the field that contains the columns in your data, right? This place contains the columns in your data, and then this is the place where you now drag these fields to, depending on the type of data that column contains. What I mean here is that you could see we have four main boxes here. We have the values field, rows field, columns field, and then filters field. The values field contains records of them. The data you drag to your values field is the actual data you want to perform operation on. For instance, if you are interested in sales data, like the figures, the numbers, right? The numbers is what you will now drag to the values field. But the rows and columns, they represent the same thing, just that it talks this part, it's related to, or it's linked to the way you want to arrange those data, like the way you want to, if you want to shoot a breakdown of values, and then maybe stacked in rows, such that we have the first one, second one, third one. We'll quickly see that you drag it to the row. But then the column, instead of from top to bottom, you have it left to right. So let me just quickly drag one of the fields to here, which is sales. So let me drag sales. Let me drag the sales. Please give me a minute to handle an issue, please. So let's go back to where we stopped. Please kindly ignore the background noise. So I have dragged the sales feed to this place, and then you could see that this field here. Remember how our pivot table was empty before, but the fact that I've dragged it here shows it now shows me the value. It applies a kind of a summary statistics to my to that field, which is the default statistics it applies is to sum up, like to add up all the values in that column to give me the sum. But I could also change that, so I could even apply other kind of summaries, which is I could count, I could perform average, I may be interested in getting the maximum value, minimum value, or product, or a lot of other things I could do here, right? So it's up to me. But I think for our purpose here, sum is okay. So the next thing I would want to do is where I will now show you the difference between columns and rows. So column, let's say I want to see among the our managers, right? Let's see, we want to see a breakdown of our sales by manager to know which manager recorded the highest sales. So let me drag it to the rows field. So you could see here now that we have four managers: 1, 2, 3, 4. Anna, Cassandra, Chuk, and then Kelly, right? So I will just quickly filter out this blank. So we could now see the breakdown of our field of these sales by different um, managers, right? I could go on to even sort this so that the highest sales comes first, and then maybe in that would make it in descending order, right? So let me just go to sort. I mean, um, more sort options. I'd want to set it in descending order. Descending order will now make the highest value come first, right? Descending order by what? Sum of sales. Okay, let me click OK. So this has sorted. So you could see now that Anna made the highest sales, which is 725,000 $457 dollars, and then the least sales was recorded by Cassandra, which was 391,721, right? So now the other thing I would want to show you is the difference between rows and columns. Just take a look at how this column looks at the moment. I would let me quickly change something here. So let me just copy this and then paste somewhere here, right? So we still have the same pivot table. We have the same pivot table, but this time around I would click on this one. I want to transform this in a way, so instead of rows I would drag this manager to column. So can you now see the difference in arrangement? So instead of top to bottom, I have from aligned. I have the different managers aligned from left to right, right? And then the same sum of sales. You could see the grand total is still the same. You could see the Cassandra sales still the same, just the different ways they were arranged. That's what that's just basically the difference between the two, right? So I think that has done justice to it. Then the third field I would want to show us, the fourth field rather, I want to show us is filters. Let's see. Filter simply means when you are selecting a subset of your data, and by subset I mean maybe there are some categories I don't want to show, or maybe I do not want to show all the, as you can see here now, the managers. I don't want to show the all of them, so I just want to show the first two. So let me just drag that field again to filters field. What is it? Manager. I will now drag this to the filters field. Right now we will see the new entry here. So this is where I now apply my filter. At the moment it's showing it automatically selected all the managers. That's why you can see multiple items, and then the sum has not changed. So just take note of this value. It's currently 2.2 million, and so let me just select the subset I need. Maybe I just need the first two, so I'll uncheck these two, and then so the value has reduced, meaning that I now have a subset of the original data. Let's go back. I now have a subset of the original data, right? That's what filter does for you. But for now, let me just take back everything. I'll take everything back. Okay, so okay, let me just remove this for now. At this point I want to confirm that you can still hear me. Please let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay, let me check this. Let me drag this back again to what it was, and uncheck this blank. So we're back to where we are. Now let's see other ways you can interact with these pivot tables, right? Other ways you can interact with it, other tools you can apply to it. I always mention I don't want to see this. It's fine. So let's go back. There are a lot of other things I can apply to this power pivot table, right? So I could choose to show to further add up levels of grant, like let's say further breakdown of these sales records by manager and then by other metrics like criteria. Let's say region. Let me add drag regions field to this place. I mean, okay, I think this should come first. Let me drag this field here. So we now have sales. Okay, region and the manager may not really contain some relevant, I mean, much important data. Why? Because I think each of our managers is in charge of just one region, right? But let's try and see if we can check um, subcategory or product category. So let me drag this to here. So we can now see the breakdown of these sales by first by the subcategory, then by and I now see the record, the kind of sales volume that each manager made, right? So Anna is 251612, Choke, and so on and so forth. So there are three main categories here, which are furniture, office supplies, and technology, right? So across these three categories, in terms of furniture, Anna made the highest sales, right? Going by the data we have, which is 252,000, right? And then Cassandra made the list. Then, but in terms of office supplies, it's still Anna. Wow. Then finally, and Cassandra is always at the bottom, maybe perhaps because of the region he or she covers. Then we have Chuk taking the place of, I mean, dominating in the technology category. But Anna is still coming second place, so Anna is really doing well. And Cassandra is, perhaps Cassandra needs to improve, or could just be maybe the location of that, let's say, of that region, I mean the location of the office or whatever. So but I have a sense of a breakdown of what this sales means, I mean what sales value, I mean what the performance of our staff looks like, right? That's the thing. Then another thing I would want to show you about pivot tables is the ability to apply slicers and filters. Okay, I think I just showed you all filters. Let me go and see if I can apply another filter now. Let me confirm that the return that we filtered initially was actually effective. So let me go back. Oh, this is showing all. Okay, well, did not really apply. Okay, let me filter this by orders that were returned. I mean that were not returned. So I will just click on false. Maybe I would have to find a better way to handle, I mean, to resolve this, because you notice that for most of our operations, I would still need to keep filtering, and filtering. So that may not really be an intuitive way, but for now, we can proceed with that. So we have filtered for, so the values we are seeing here represent actual orders that were completed and never returned, right? So that's what you can see here. So I just dragged it to this field, and then that's reflected. Finally, I want to show us how to apply slicers, so the data fields. And a slicer is just like some clickable buttons that let us um, maybe see only a subset of the underlying data in our pivot table. So for instance, I want to be able to see let's say the different segments of our, I mean, audience segments. From this subset, I want to see how many, maybe I'm just interested in the sales that or orders completed by maybe consumers or corporate offices or any other segment, any other group in our customer segment. So to apply slicers, what I would do is I would come to that particular um, column and I'll right click, and I'll have additional option. Now is to add to report filter, add to row label, add to column label, add to value, right? So you can see that these first four are still the same as the four boxes we are seeing here, which are filters, columns, rows, and then values. Now the last one here is slicer. So I would click that. So by adding, clicking that, I have this appear, right? Now let's say I'm interested in seeing only sales that that were placed, or let's say only sales for or to um consumers. So if I click on that, you could see how the tables are changing. So you could see how the tables are changing. That's what Slicers does. And then these are just like the basics of a pivot table. And when I select this pivot, what happens here is that this pivot, this slicer is connected to this pivot table. So let's say I have multiple pivot tables. The same, I can still establish the connection I want. Maybe I can connect one pivot table, one slicer to multiple pivot tables, or multiple pivot tables to one or one pivot table to multiple slicers. Sorry. Now you can see the option here, slicer. If I click on that, I can expand that to see other options, which are report connections. This is where you connect your pivot table to the slicer to a pivot table. So clicking on that, you could see that the first pivot table we have here, which is this one, we only have one of them, which is called a pivot table 1, right? So right now, because I clicked on that before I created this slicer, this slicer was automatically tied to that pivot table. But if I uncheck it now, let's see what will happen when I uncheck it. By the time I uncheck it and click OK, if I click on this, it will not cause any changes again. You will see that there's no change here. So when you create your pivot table, you would want to establish the connection you want, right? So let me go back and link it back to what it was. Oh, sorry. Let me link it back. So I'll go here, then I'll check it back. So by the time we create other pivot tables, we would be able to see the change taking effect. So I click on OK, and then we've restored back that. Then if I click on pivot table instead of slicer, I have options here, two new options here. We have the pivot table analyze and then the design, right? I can choose to design my pivot table in the way I want it to look. So let me click on design first. Then I can see here that that's the report layout. For instance, at the moment you will see that we have furniture, then we have the names of the managers under it. But what if I want to have each of the categories on their own column? So let's say now, let me click on report layout, show in compact form. Let me show it in tabular form. You could see that it has expanded, right? So I now have a new column here, which is manager. So I now have category, then manager, and then actual sales value, and then continues like that. You could also see that we have grand total here, which was applied by default, automatically applied. So let me say, let's say I don't want to see that. I would close that out. So I'll just go to design, then I will go to grand totals, then turn off for rows and columns, or depending on which option, all these options. For in our case, I can just turn it off so that I don't get to see it here. Yeah. So that handles that. Then our slicers are still working. Yes. All right. That's a kind of a brief walkthrough of creating a basic pivot table with Excel. Now, there are other things we can actually do here, and then this is where we now start doing. Maybe I want to start creating things like maybe we are interested in certain metrics. Interested in certain metrics. Like I would want to see the performance of our sales year over year, the profit we have made, and then all those other values, all those other metrics. I can say for sure that we have another session that will be focusing on that. Let me confirm here. Okay, critical business metrics, that's the KPIs. Well, okay, we have choosing the right metrics for your business needs, hands-on working building. Okay, so let's just do a quick intro to that. Let's see how to perform, calculate certain business metrics with with power, I mean with power pivot tables, right? Okay, so the first thing here, let me see if we have time to do that. Okay, so we do. Okay, before we proceed to that, let's see how we can set additional slicers or even to customize your slicers, and then the rest of that. So let's say I want to apply more slicers. I don't just want to see um, segments. I want to see other clickable icons for other metrics, which could be let's say ship mode. Sorry. One way I can do that would be just to simply copy this and then let me paste it here. The reason I did this is that it would make it faster for us. It will be faster for us when we start changing the connections. So let's say now, what was that? Okay, let's go here. Let's see this slicer setting. Let's see what you will find under slicer setting. Okay, under slicer setting, this is where you can rename, perform, let's say do some renaming and even the different ways your data would show, right? Okay, so the other thing I would want to show is let me just take my step. Let me just retrace my steps and then let's create it directly from here. I'll click on this and then the column I'm interested in, which is ship mode, right? I'll just do the same thing I did before, add as slicer. So I now have this by the side, and then this one's showing blank rows. Can we take that out? Yes, it's possible. So let me just go back to this place. Then slicer settings. Then this option here, which is show items with no data. Let me uncheck that and see what happens. Oh, didn't go. Okay. What can I do now to remove that? Let me just try and see if this option will work. Usually indicate items with no data. Okay, I think that was the option I was supposed to check. Really? Okay. Let's say I'm missing an option here. Okay. Let me just try it one more time. If I don't see the option, maybe we can get back to that later on. But in terms of report connection, we already have that established since we created that report. So you could see that this second pivot table is also connected to that. I mean, second slicer is also connected to our pivot table, right? Okay, before I handle this issue here, I would want to show us how to format our pivot tables. I mean our slicers. So let me go back here. When I click on slicer, it brings up the options for me to customize. Assuming I don't want this to just show in this stacked form, I just want to see them aligned side by side. So I would go back there. Then instead of currently showing 3 columns, I mean 1 column, let's raise it up to 3, right? We can now see it. Then let me drag this to one side. Let's expand that. Then right, okay, so I have it like this. And though we may not dwell so much on this, given that that's not the main focus of the day of this session, but it's still good that we are having a kind of sense of it. So this one too, I can quickly set this to. We have 4 data points we're interested in here, so I'll raise this to 4. So I now have this like this. Then let me just expand it to show everything in full. Okay. So remember, we'll handle this one eventually. So I have my filter, my slicer set up, at least as basic as it is. It still functions. All right. So we're making progress. Let's assume I want to select multiple, apply multiple filters, because for now, if I just check on one, the one showing a shade of blue is the one selected. So like now, corporate is selected. Everything I'm seeing here is sales values for corporate, just like I would do for. So it's now showing me sales value for corporate whose ship mode were first class, right? So if I click here now, the value will still update. So we'll now see home office for home office sales value for home office whose ship mode is same day or second class, or so a combination of these slicers would give you the final value you see here. But it's important that you know the slicers you applied. It's also possible to apply multiple slicers. Check here. So I can now select multiple. You can now see that they are all showing in blue, meaning this is showing us all the sales. But then this time around, another filter is still applied, another slicer is still applied, meaning it's showing me sales across all segments that were shipped through the standard class method, right? I can also remove the filter. I can also clear the filter. So when I clear this one, by the time I clear this one, it shows that all the different ship modes were selected here. So the sales value I'm seeing here shows me the overall, the entire sales data. Across all segments and all ship modes, right? So with that, we have, I think we now have a basic idea of how to do that one too. Now, the other thing I would want to show us is at least now that we have a sense of what creating a pivot table looks like. Okay, someone may ask, why do we really need to go through all this? Because usually you can just quickly, let's say you want to create charts and all that, you can just quickly come here, copy the column you want to work on, or just simply select it and then insert, simply select it and insert your chart and all that. But the reason why pivot tables are very powerful is that they are dynamic, and then whatever changes I make here, let's say I build a chart off of this table, I can reuse the slicers, and whenever I apply a slicer that affects this pivot table, even the underlying charts or whatever other tables I derived from this pivot table would automatically be um would automatically be updated. So that's one of the things that make pivot table very, very important. Now, now that we have had a sense of what a pivot table is, we can now move on to the next section. Or before we do that, maybe we can just create additional pivot tables. Additional pivot tables to show other ways we can slice and dice our data, right? Or even perform calculations with that. So I want to create a second pivot table here. So let me go back again, select my data, and then insert, then pivot table, then new worksheet, no, existing worksheet, yes. So I now this option lets me to select the worksheet I'm interested in. So I click that to fold it. You can click it to expand, click to fold. So I will now go to the folder, the worksheet, click here. Then where do I want to position it? Let me come somewhere below this first one, click on that, and then it has selected a cell. Then I go back and click OK. So we now have the second pivot table here, right? Just like we had before. And then what are those things we want to see? Let's say we want to see breakdown of sales, and profits across different years. The data set here runs from there's the order date, shows the date the order was placed, right? So I want to perform certain calculations that lets me see the breakdown of these sales across different time series time frames. So what will I do first? The first thing I'll do is, first of all, to drag the sales value. to the field, to the value field, right? I'll drag that to the value field, and we'll have what we saw initially. Then the second thing I'll do is to drag my time, right? Where is the order ID? Where is the order date? Let me drag this to this column. And then you notice something, that I only dragged one field here, but then it fragmented into multiple other fields. So I can now see years, quarters, order dates, and the rest of that. Now, what happened was that Excel is so smart to guess that I may be interested in seeing this value across different time frames, which could be quarterly or yearly. For instance, if I click here, I can expand here to now see Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That's for 2014. The same thing for the other. But assuming I just want to see the years, right? Breakdown by years. I'll take out this one, remove field, then take out this one as well, remove field. So we'll now have it in this way. Instead of, yeah, we'll now have it in this way. Now, this grand total, I don't want it. Let me turn it off. So I'll go to design, then turn off for rows and columns. And then every other date before 2014, I don't need that. There. Then every other date after 2017. So the span of my data is 2014 to 2017. So those other fields don't really hold any meaningful information. So I have it here. I would want to see the newest data first. Let's say 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014. I'm interested in the most recent, so I can apply some kind of sorting. I'll sort it, then go back to sort. We have oldest to newest is what is currently showing. But if I click on newest to oldest, the arrangement will change. So we'll now have 2017 coming, 2016, 2015, 2014, right? Then sum of sales is the value, right? But these are the fields. So what if again I don't want to see for all the years? I just want to see for the last 2 years, right? I want to see for the last 2 years. How will I achieve that? I can achieve that by applying a filter. So date filters, let's go here. We have different options. We have equals, before, after, between, tomorrow, blah blah blah, and the rest. Okay, so which filter would make more sense here? Let's say top n. Let's say the top two. Let's see if that will work. Top n. I can set my top two. Let me just put 2 here. Items by sum of sales. That's the value we have here. But this will not give me what I want actually. This would likely change. Because if, for instance, the sales for 2014 was more than the sales for 2017, I will see 2014 here, right? So this may not really be
Sometimes you do the highest number of sales for each year.
no.
The year will not. Okay.
No, what I want to do, I just want to show 2017 and 2016. So let me just quickly do that. I want to show only the last 2 years, right? So I can just quickly filter, but I was looking for a more dynamic way than coming to check it manually. So I'll just set this, and you can now see that we now have a subset of our data, which is 2017 and 2016, right?
But the last one you did showed just 2017 and
Sorry.
2016. The top two. When you click top two, it showed only 2017 and 2016.
I think your voice is I can't hear you
Can
very
you
well.
hear me?
It's far, kind of.
When you click, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I said when you clicked top two, it showed only 2017 and 16.
Yes, but that method can also lead to an error. Let's assume now that the value top two shows the top two, like in terms of by sum of sales, it's interested in this value, not here, right? So if the value of our 2014 sales is something higher than that of 2017, you'd see it. Like I wanted to show the latest, the most recent data, like 2017, then 2016. So if I had followed that method, it just happened that the data favored us such that the sales value for 2017 is higher than the rest. So it had it been there was a sales value higher in 2014 than 2017, I would be seeing 2014 here and then likely 2016 here. So that was why I had to just uncheck that. But for now, I think this is good enough. I can now I'm seeing 2017 and then 2016. So maybe this only shows that this company is making more sales as the years go by, right? So that option
Okay.
would work, but could also fail in some cases. So I now have this. The other thing I would want to do is I want to perform some kind of a year over year. I want to see my year over year sales growth. And then what is year over year? Year over year is I want to see how my sales has increased or decreased. Like sales for this year, how has it changed relative to last year's sales, right? So the formula is that you first get the difference in years, right? That's the sales value for last year, I mean for this year, minus that for last year, gives me the difference in sales, right? Then I will now divide that difference by the sales value for the previous year, right? So let's call it a um, sales year over year, right? Formula is equal to sales this year minus sales last year, all of them together divided by sales last year. So with this matrix, we can see whether we are really growing in sales or not, right? So that's what we want to see here, want to derive here. So how do I do it? I can apply formula, Excel formula here, right? Remember how to apply Excel formula. You have to know the cell value, and Excel. I mean, to know the value of a cell, you have to work with. I mean, you reference a cell using the corresponding rows and columns of that cell, right? So this very cell that contains 602,205 is cell C28. Let me just call that cell to C28 outside here. I mean, so that we can see whether I'm picking the right value. So I'll just put equal to C28. You will see that by the time I typed that in the box here, the shaded box here came to, I mean, you could see what happened. It came to select the cell I just referenced. So if I click OK, enter, I now see that this very cell is now referencing whatever value is here, right? Whatever value is here is what this place is now referencing. So we are going to leverage on that to perform our calculations. So for this very one that I want to calculate sales year over year, what I'll do is I'll start by equal to, let's open a bracket or a parenthesis rather. Then I will now remember it's sales this year minus sales last year. The cell containing value for sales this year is cell B28. B28. Then minus sales last year, which is sales last year is now the one for 2016, which is now C28. Then I will now close the bracket. Then divided by sales last year, which is C28, right? So this gives me the year over year growth, right? So it shows that since I have a positive value, it shows that my sales actually grew between last year and this year. My sales actually grew, right? So that's what this is showing us. The other thing is I would want to also see, I would want to also modify this um table kind of slightly, so that I can see um in a way maybe other value related to profit, right? Let me just drag this profit to this value field again. There's already a data. I want to replace it. Profit. How can't I see this? No, no. Search. I'm expecting to see. Okay, quick one. Okay, I think let me. Something is not working now. Okay, let me. Perhaps I would need to create a totally different pivot table for that. So let me copy this one. Let me copy this one. Paste and modify. So instead of sales, I'll just drag this out, and then let me remove this field. And then let me drag profit. Where's it again? What's going on? Okay, so let me try again. Yeah, it's no longer freezing. So I'll drag this to here. So what I'm seeing here now is no longer sales, it's now profit, right? So I can rename this to profit. So I now have my profit, right? So the next thing I would want to do is I would want to format these very values. For instance, this is supposed to show as a percentage, right? I may want to choose to show this as a percentage, just like this one. But for now, it's still showing as a fraction, like ratio of our original ratio, like in terms of growth. So this is like 20% of this year alone. We've made 20% of what, like 20% addition to what we made last year. That's what this one is showing. So I would want to format my field. This one, let me convert this to a percentage. So I'll select it, right click, and then go to format cells. So let's open that. I can show it as a percentage, right, or as a currency. No, currency is not appropriate, so it should be percentage. Let me click on percentage. Then I can now set decimal places. I will just set it to 1. I can just set it to 1. So we can now see 20%. Let me copy the style. Instead of replacing, to just reduce the number of clicks I would have to make, I can right click on that, ensuring that the cell is selected. The formatting I applied to that cell, I can right click here, then look at this thing that looks like a brush. Click on that. It's format painter. You can now see that my cursor has changed. So I can now see something like that looks like a brush following me. I'll come to the cell I want to format. I'll click once. So this one has already also updated. So the formatting I applied here followed through to this one. So knowing those shortcuts would save your time, so that when you have spent time performing certain formatting and the rest, you do not need to repeat those steps again. But one thing about formatting is that by the time I call this value Formatting does not always follow the underlying data when you reference that data in another place, right? Let's say I have another field, maybe the worksheet where I would do my dashboard design, right? When I reference that cell, it would not follow. Like I will only see the underlying value that I I called, not formatting. Formatting is just like cosmetics, like the makeup you apply. So that is not the real you. It's just on the based on it just
So,
ends with what people can see.
all these formulas, like the
Sorry.
CV, the formulas there,
Mm.
the C28
Okay, let me click into
minus.
that to show you.
How um do you learn these formulas?
How you learn them?
Yeah, is there like a pattern as to how you follow the
Okay, all
formulas?
right. That's a very important question. And then it's also a good opportunity to mention that in analyzing data is just using Excel as a tool is just one of those ways, one of those things that are involved in analyzing data. But there is also another thing called domain knowledge. Domain knowledge means that someone who studied accounting would know, someone who studied accounting or business analysis and the rest should know what this formula is, even without knowing Excel, right? Someone who studied engineering may not really be familiar with this formula because that is not their main field. Maybe they use Excel for other fields. I mean, for other form of analysis that are relevant to engineering. But this one we are now interested in business in marketing. So I would say personally, I did not read accounting. I did not read this. So how do I now know these values? How do I now know these formulas? I would go out there and then I would read up those metrics. I'll read up those formula to know how to derive them, right? So
Okay.
it's still good to mention that we have to still be this vulnerable and then go out there and research, then come back, and then Excel is just a tool to implement that. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
So that's how to go about it. You don't need to know everything. There are so many formula, just like we experienced the other time. There are so many formula here that Excel offers, and you may not even need all of them. So instead of working yourself with all these formula, just narrow down to the ones you really need, and then move on with your life. So now the other formatting, I mentioned that formatting is only on the surface. The other formatting I would want to apply, if for instance you are going to eventually design a dashboard with this power, let's say you are just using this as a draft, a rough worksheet. Let's call it a um, draft or rough work, right? Eventually, this may not really be what you would show to people. You would want to design a dashboard or an interface that brings all these things together. I would want to see sales value as a card, this one as a card, kind of design and all that. So when you are focusing on when that is your goal, you may not need to spend time applying all this formatting here. You would want to do it in the dashboard that you are designing, right? You would want to do it in the dashboard so that you don't have to repeat it again. If you do it here, you will still likely have to repeat it again, right? Maybe these like the canvas for our dashboard. You would want to show all this. I think I have a dashboard that I can show us quickly. Mm, but that may not be handy now, so let me not dwell so much on that. But the message is that if you are designing, if you are performing this, maybe you can just focus on the calculations here and then not the brush up. When you now want to design them, you will still somehow have to call all this data to this place. This data in this very place, you still need to call them. Let's say I want to call this value, this sales value, in sum of sales, which is in cell D28. Let me call it in another worksheet. I will just come and say equal to, then let me select this rough work, then select the column. I think I made a mistake there. Equal to rough work cell D28. Okay, yeah. So you could see what I've been trying to explain all this while. Remember here, we have already formatted this as a percentage which is 20.4%. But by the time I called it here, it's all those formatting disappeared. Right? That's why it's important to not worry so much about the formatting here. Just finish with your design, your calculations, and then come here and do the cosmetics. So you could see you could call a value from a worksheet to the other, right? So that's another important lesson to pick from this.
To change it
So
back to this worksheet,
sorry.
to change it back to the percentage value, what would you do? You
Okay,
just
in the
copy
new
the
worksheet,
one you
right?
stored. Yeah.
Okay, you still apply the same. Okay, let me repeat that. Control Z. To do that, you still need to format this one. I'll right click. I would go to format cell. Then if the option opens to up again for me. Percentage. Let me set it back to my. I can even apply other format. Let's say I want to apply a field. I give it a dark background with a white font. There's a color. Let me give it a white font color, and then I would want to maybe increase the font size to 20. Okay, can you see now?
Yes.
Right. So that's how to handle that. Now we have. I will not say we've done justice to Power Query. Power Pivot, because there are a lot more we can actually do here. There are so much we can actually do here. Let's see if we can explore the options. Power Pivot Analyze. What are those other things we can do here? Let's say we want to perform. Remember how we arrived at this sales year over year, right? I want to do it.
Yes.
Sorry, I want to do it.
Yes, I remember.
Thank you. I want to do it using another method, which is using calculated field instead, right? So how do I achieve that? A calculated field allows you to perform calculations and then create columns or fields where you would want to show that. So let's say I want to replicate this here. I've selected this. Okay, here instead I've selected this cell. Then I now go to formulas. Is it under formulas, or I'm not sure it's formulas? Okay, let me go back here. Click on this. I always pivot analyze rather. Then you can now see fields, items, and sets. Click here. You are going to see calculated field, right? So I now have this field name. Let's say redo sales YOY, or recalculate sales YOY. Recalculate sales YOY. Then this is where you give the name of that field. This is where you now enter the formula. So it's equal to, remember the formula we used. It's equal to or let me just perform a basic calculation here. Let's say I want to just divide. Let me just say sales. Let me just divide sales by 100, or just something tricky. Divide sales by 100. That's just a very basic this thing we can do. So I will now do equal to sales. Double click to show that sales divided by 100. There's already data in the mm, 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 mm. You want to replace it. Dividing that would reduce the into some confusion. I don't want to overwrite what I've done before. See what will happen. What will happen is we would have another class whereby we perform some of these like we'll have a kind of a deeper dive into some of these things I'm trying to show, because I'm not sure I'm prepared for this for now, so I just have to.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have another class whereby we think I've messed up what I have before. Let me remove it from here. Remove shield. We'll have another class to have a hands-on. At the moment, I really have not drafted out what the calculations would look like. So we may just spend the rest of the class playing around with the pivot tables and then similar things. Then next time we'd have a kind of a more organized, because even my battery is low now. We'll have a more comprehensive class on that. So what are the other things we can do here? Mm, we can we can rename our pivot table. This is showing pivot table 3, right? But by the time you have
Mm.
many pivot tables, you may not be able to recognize which one is which. And this comes in handy when we want to bind a kind of a slicer to a pivot table. Now we've created 2 slicers, but these 2 slicers don't affect these 2 extra pivot tables we created, right? So how do we bind those slicers to these pivot tables? This one is showing as pivot table what? Go back again, select it, go back again, see it here, pivot table 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have known the name as pivot table 3. This one is showing as this one is pivot table what? It should be 2 or 4. Okay, 4. Okay, the jump was because there was a pivot table I deleted. There was the time I copied this one, pasted here, and then eventually removed it. So that Excel still remembers that I did that. That was why there's a jump in the naming, but that's not an issue. Let's bind pivot table 3 and pivot table 4 to the slicers we already created. So I can do it in 2 ways. I can just select the slicer. I select the slicer, go to slicer, then report connection. Then for now it's just connected to pivot table 1. You just check this one and then this one. I click on OK. So this one, if I click on this slicer, let me hide these cells now so we can see what I'm trying to do. Let me hide this so that at least we can. So when I apply this slicer, it affects all these 3 tables, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see there are changes here. But now that I have not connected this one is only going to affect this first pivot table. Is it affecting it? Okay. You are seeing this one shifting just because these cells are shifting, but the value themselves are not changing. For instance, look at this 609205. It's not the value themselves are not changing. What is changing is the size of the cell, because the value in this cell is changing and it's affecting the one here. But the data here is not changing at all. So we've not connected this to them. So let me go and do the connection. Let me go and do the connection. Just go back here, slicer, report connection, this and this. Okay, so you could see now that across all segments we made a 70% growth in year over year sales for the first class ship mode. Let me select same day, 41%. But then for profit we made a kind of a loss,
Mm.
right? We made a loss. So let me take it back here. Here we made a massive growth in sales as well as profit. We made more than the profit we made last year, actually, greater than 1. Second class 26%, 29%. This one is kind of conservative. And then this is 6.2, there's a loss here. So the more granular you can dive through your or dive into your data, the more insights you can gain from that. And why this is a very handy is that you may be preparing this report maybe for your team or some of the key decision makers if you are not one in the company, and then they may want to see other things that, like, you are just creating a template that allows anyone that is interested in delving into this data to see what they are interested in seeing, right? So that's why an interactive vision like this, an interactive feature like this is very, very helpful. There's another thing we can also, let's see if we can go the other way around. I click here. Okay, where is that? Mm, okay, okay. This place is not really showing us much much insight. We don't have much to glean from here. Just that this is more related to formatting, like the presentation and all that, like the layout, the data, and the rest. Here is where you can set your data to refresh. For instance, if I want my pivot table to refresh, maybe I'm expecting that this data, the underlying data, is always updating. I want to see that anytime I open this report, I would see the most up to date data. I don't need to come and refresh it manually all the time. I can just check this box so that whenever I open my report, I can see the most recent data. But that's not the focus for now. This one is about the display and then layouts and formats, and then this is not really a nice feature because sometimes it can screw up your entire um, layout. Autofit column width on update. Let's say I have a name that is longer than the highest name here is Cassandra Brandon, which is about 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14, about, let's say, 16 characters. If I have a name longer than that, the next time that update shows here, that data shows here, the length or the width of this cell is going to be longer. So it might result in issues in some cases though, but not necessarily all the time. So what are the other things I would want to show you? Let's say we want to apply certain customization to this slicer. So I can go here. Here I can change the layout, the way it's represented. So I can also even set certain features, certain this thing as the default. So I want to change the way this my slicers are displayed. So let me
Sorry,
create
can I
my
ask
own
you something?
kind of edit modified version of a default slider. So I can just see how I got to this place. I first clicked on slicer, then I now saw these options here. If I click here, I can see it expands. So I don't want to create a new slicer entirely because formatting it might take my time. So I will just quickly come here, hover on the first one I'm interested in, the one closest to, you would want to create something that aligns with your brand, right? So that
Mm.
everything looks familiar. So I can just create.
I want to ask a question.
All right.
Um, when you were trying to, is it you clicked on the slicers and it changed the values
Mm,
on these other columns.
yes.
Um, Now something I'm a little confused on is why the values were changing when you clicked on the ship mode.
Okay. All right. So why that happened is because slicing is like,
Mm-hmm.
I have, let's say, I have in my refrigerator, I have eggs, and I mean item. quantity, or item, amount.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have eggs, I have a Milo, I have a let's say, should I say bread, and then I have 3,000,
Mm-hmm.
5,000,
Mm-hmm.
let's say 2,000. Okay, so now if I want to see just Milo and bread, I want to perform a calculation that is affecting only Milo and bread.
Mm-hmm.
Slicer would help me achieve that. So by that we could see that slicing is a way of pulling out only a subset of your data, right? We applying certain
Mm-hmm.
calculations only on only a subset of your data. For instance, in this case now, the first class, same day, second class, and standard. If you go back to the original source, to the data source, you will see that under ship mode, right? An order here
Yeah.
with this ID was placed on this date, and then the date it was shipped is on this date. The method of shipping
Mm-hmm.
or the mode of shipping is standard class. But another order that was placed on this date with this ID, or placed on this date, shipped on this date, was a first class,
First class.
right? Like you would want to keep track
Yeah.
of the differences in
Classes.
your data, right? But I may be interested in seeing only, maybe I want to see the date or the average days it takes for orders that were placed through standard class to get to the customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can achieve that using, but then in achieving that, I don't have any business again to do with those for first class or second class or same day, right? So I can now simply filter or slice. To slice is just like you bring a loaf of bread and then cut it into tray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you pick the one you want. Is that
Okay.
clear? So that was why
Yeah.
when I applied those slicers, you will now see that for now, for instance, let's say segment. Let me remove all the filters here. For now, we could see that segment, for instance, we have three main segments: consumer, corporate, and home office. I may want to see only sales report for consumers, right? I may want to see only sales report for consumers. So I would click on consumer. Everything I'm seeing here now is about
Is
consumers alone.
okay. I understand this now.
Okay, thank you. So I would have to close this, clear this. Yeah. Let me just bring this back to what it was like. Let me just quickly bring this to. Okay, so I was about to show you how to format your slicers. Click
Okay.
on slicer, go here, pick whichever one aligns very closely to the color of your brand. In our case, let's say the color of my brand is this lemon. Is that lemon? I'm not really good with
Mm-hmm.
colors, but let's assume it's lemon. But this slicer is showing blue and all that. It really does not look so nice. So I can come to this one that is close to that. So you could say that this one is now at least is looking somewhat closer to the
So
main
this
pivot
one.
table, right? And then I can also do that for the other pivot table, or I can set this as the default slide. I mean this format I applied, I can set it as the default slider. So I can click on right click, set as default, right? This needs to update. Um, where is the default I just set now? Okay, so why do I need to do? Okay, but then if you check and you don't see anyone that aligns with you that is much closer to your brand this, or you just want to apply some changes, you can still come here, right click, then maybe duplicate. Instead of creating a totally new this thing, you can just simply duplicate and then make those changes. Let me call it a custom slicer. My custom slicer one.
Mm.
My custom slicer one. Now this allows you to format and there are many different sections or areas of this slicer you can format. If you select this whole slicer, the changes you apply to that will affect everything in the slicer. But if it is just the header you want to apply the formatting to, or selected with data, or hovered selected item with data and the rest. So for now, let me select whole slicer and then format. So the formatting you can apply here is I would want to maybe the font. I would want to change. Let me change the font from font oh no, I'm not really sure the font size, but let me just set it as something around 10, right? And then I set this one as bold or even italic. And let me just do something that will be visible, right? Go back again. I've selected that. Then color. Color could be something like dark green. I'm designing a very terrible slicer. And then the font, let me call it Calibri. I think that's even the default. Then border, I can put the border color as this. And then fill, I can choose the fill color as yellow. Yeah, this must be a very horrible this in there. So you can see you can have a sense of what it looks like here, this preview.
Mm.
So if I set it as default slicer style for this document, guess what? It has not yet populated. But I'm expecting that it has not yet populated because even though I designed it, I have not yet selected
Yeah.
it, right?
Okay.
So it's still selecting the old one. So this is it. Then back to this one. Let me just select this one again as that. So that has become my default slicer, right? But in my
Mm.
opinion, this slicer is not really looking nice. And we also have to take note that having too many colors, like it will just make our design, our port so too colorful and distracting. Like here alone, you can see how many colors. You can see this light yellow, is it yellow, orange, black, lemon, and all that. So it's not really the best yet, right? So I
Mm.
can still edit it. Go back here. Let me modify it. Let me modify it. Right click, modify. So what were those things I did that were so bad? Go back. Fill. Yeah, fill was that. The fill color, I can just make it white. Yeah. Then the border. The border color, green. Yeah, this lemon is not bad, but that's our font and
Mm.
our brand color. Then let me set this now and see what that looks like. Yes, at least this is somehow better. Then this border here, let me remove it. Let me remove this border here so that our this thing will look kind of minimalistic, or let me just call it a minimal. So where do I go? Where was that border? Mm, okay, none. There's the outline, none. Border color. I need to use a border color. I can just make it white. Let's hope that saves the day. So for this one, you can see there's a difference. Now that border, if you are watching very closely, the border here, there was a kind of a small, a very tiny line here, edge line, edge here that surrounded it. Let me go back some steps before that. You could see now, Control Z, Control Y. That was what we just did. I hope you are taking notes.
Yes.
All right. Then, what are the other things I would want to change? Um, yeah, this looks basic, but I think we can work with this for now. Can work with this for now. If I copy this and paste to the canvas for our dashboard, let's see what it will look like. Yeah. So in our white, if the background of our dashboard is white, then this really goes well. It gives it that minimal, simple design it deserves, while still aligning to our brand color. Right. I still have that gray, um, lemon color that we are following. So those are the I'm taking notes. We might end this class in the next couple of minutes so that we can. I think we've almost exhausted our time. Yeah. So back to this. Where's that rough sheet? Okay. Yeah. So we could safely say that we spent this class just mastering pivot tables and then slicers and the rest. The same style we applied, we can still apply the design to this one just like we did to the pivot table. To the slicers. So um, we may not be able to finish that. So I am thinking at this point we would have to call this a day so that we can meet next time
Mm-hmm.
to continue with the automation thing. Remember the destination is actually automation, not necessarily
Yes.
pivot tables alone. So thank you so much for joining this class and have a great day ahead.
Thank you. You too. Have a great day.
All right, bye.